So Aries de Gues, I can't say his name like you. I apologize. I'll point to you.
It's Dutch. It's Dutch.
Right. So Aries
de Gues.
Right. I read a book of his called The Living Company. And it's about creating a learning organization. And he wrote this. He was with the Dutch Shell Oil, Royal Dutch Shell Oil Company like decades ago. And he did planning for them and scenario planning and all kinds of things. And in that book, he talked about a story that, again, this relates to our rectangle idea or to the idea of what is it that we're following blindly in our structures, on what we focus on and who we deal with, that really like it might not be appropriate to like there could easily be other things. It just so happens we've structured things that way. Unknowingly, through no fault of our own. So in the de Gues story, he talks about, now I don't know if this story is apocryphal, but it's talked about like it's real. So in the early 20th century, there were, I don't know if any stories, to me, every story is apocryphal. I never know if anything is real or not. So in the early 20th century, there was a team of British anthropologists, and they went somewhere in the world, I forget it was, but it was so isolated, it was a mountain region, it was so isolated that they happened upon a tribe that the tribe was so much different from the rest of the world that this is like 1905 or so, they hadn't discovered the wheel yet. That's where that tribe was. And so they talked to the chief and they said to the chief, they said, what we'd like to do, they learned about the culture there. I don't want to make it seem like they just swooped in and grabbed the chief and went away with him. But they learned about the culture there. And they said, Chief, there's a city about a day's journey away from here. And what we want to do, it's a major city. We want to take you there and we want to show you the city and we'll bring you back, but you'll go on this adventure. And he said, sure. So I think that was a verbatim quote.
Sure.
Right, exactly. So they brought the chief there, and I think it was like in Singapore or someplace like that. And they showed him tall buildings, or at least tall for back then. They showed him steam locomotives. They showed him electric lights. They showed him like all this cool modern stuff that he like never had seen before. And afterwards, he seemed very impressed with everything. Afterwards, they brought him back to his mountain region, to his tribe. And they said, of all the things you saw, what impressed you the most? What stayed with you? And he said, oh, I can tell you that. He said, I saw one man who was carrying more bananas than anyone in my tribe could carry. And of course, they were shocked to hear this because they had showed them these miracles, so-called, of modern culture, of electricity and so forth. And it was about the bananas. And the thing was that the guy who was talking about with the bananas was wheeling a huge amount of bananas in a wheelbarrow. And of course, wheelbarrow, right, based on a circle, based on a wheel, and they didn't have wheels. So it was fascinating to him. But the idea of that story is here he was presented with all these unusual things. You can say that they're for the benefit of the world, or you could argue against that his society's better. They were different. They were radically different. That you can't argue with. The thing, though, that most impressed him, that stayed with him, was this thing that he could most relate to, that people in his tribe carried bananas. And he was stunned that someone could carry so many bananas. So he took all this newness and reduced it down to this one small thing, right? This idea of banana. And so the idea here, I had read in someone's blog post, a guy named Johnson, he talked about this story. And he said, sometimes we're not ready to see things. And that if you want to make major change in your organization or in society or wherever, that you sometimes need to prepare people to see what it is that they can't see right now. right?
Right, totally. And so having a vision is really important, but how do you get a vision if you're trapped inside yourself? If everywhere you look there's just bananas? How do you prepare yourself to see windows and, radiators and electricity and locomotives and all of those things? How do you shape your own world?